Vince McMahon naming his own daughter in a federal lawsuit, revealing her knowledge of inappropriate conduct inside WWE and exposing her in a Netflix documentary, has set the internet on fire. So, let's trace how father used every tool at his disposal to pull back the curtain on his own family. In January 2024, former WWE employee Janelle Grant filed a lawsuit in AU South District Court alleging sexual assault, emotional abuse, and sex trafficking at the hands of Vince McMahon and former Executive Vice President of Talent Relations, John Laurinaitis. The lawsuit was filed during what should have been one of the most celebratory weeks in WWE history. Just 2 days prior, WWE had closed a 10-year deal with Netflix worth $5 billion for the media rights to Monday Night Raw and its wider content library, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson had just been appointed to the TKO board. Then, like a steel chair to the back, the lawsuit dropped. Vince McMahon resigned as TKO executive chairman on January 26, 2024. One day after the filing, he denied everything. He stated that the lawsuit was replete with lies, obscene, made-up instances that never occurred, and is a vindictive distortion of the truth. But here is where things get twisted. This lawsuit didn't just name Vince and Laurinaitis. It referenced 4 unnamed WWE corporate officers who allegedly knew about the relationship between McMahon and Grant or facilitated aspects of her employment. When those identities were finally revealed in March 2024 by Front Office Sports, Stephanie McMahon was identified as corporate officer number 3. Not Vince's enemies. Not outsiders. His own daughter. The lawsuit described Stephanie as having knowledge of other instances of McMahon engaging in inappropriate sexual conduct. Her name sat alongside Nick Khan as corporate officer number 1 and Brad Blum as corporate officer number 2, the 2 men described in the suit as McMahon's fixers. And just to be clear about the backdrop, Triple H had taken over as the head of WWE Creative after Vince's initial retirement in July 2022, the same Triple H who is married to Stephanie. According to leaked text messages, he was confused and unhappy about Vince McMahon's presence at a Monday Night Raw taping in Cleveland in December 2023, texting Nick Khan. Was just told by security that VKM is coming to Cleveland TV Monday. What's that about? Triple H and Vince were not on the same page, and Stephanie was caught in the middle, or, depending on who you ask, standing firmly on one side. So the question becomes, did Vince McMahon deliberately drag Stephanie's name into the public record through the lawsuit, the Netflix documentary, and every piece of information that trickled out as a calculated strike against the couple who now control his empire? Before the lawsuit hit, there was Netflix. The 6-part docuseries titled Mr. McMahon premiered in September 2024. The series had been in the works since 2019 and was close to completion in 2022, but had to pivot and expand when the Wall Street Journal reported that McMahon had paid out $12 million in settlements to 4 women. The documentary featured over 100 hours of interviews with names like Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, and members of the McMahon family themselves. Now here's where things start to look deliberate. Stephanie is interviewed and asked if her father had any storyline ideas that she refused. She laughed and deflected. Yeah, there were a couple, she said. But yeah, I'm not going to tell that one. She clearly wanted to protect whatever remained of her family's public image. She drew a line. Then Vince McMahon walked right over it. The documentary cut straight to Vince, who told the producers on camera exactly what Stephanie refused to say. He revealed that one of his storyline ideas was that Stephanie's character would get pregnant, and that his character would be the one who impregnated her, his own daughter, on national television. He smiled when he described it. He even acknowledged that, after Stephanie rejected it, he pitched that Shane McMahon, Stephanie's brother, be the father instead. Both ideas were shot down. The incestuous storyline pitch was not new information to hardcore wrestling fans. It had first surfaced on the 2006 McMahon DVD, where Stephanie explained that her father approached her about wanting to be the father of her baby on TV. She had called it a little too gross and completely disgusting. But the Netflix documentary brought it to a far wider audience, one that included millions of casual viewers who had never heard of the Attitude Era and didn't know about Vince's boundary-pushing creative decisions. Now they watched a man casually confess to pitching an incest storyline involving his real daughter while she was actually pregnant with Triple H's child. And Vince didn't stop there. The docuseries noted that Vince booked himself in a match against Stephanie just 6 days before her wedding to Triple H, and that his wife, Linda, threatened to divorce him if Stephanie ended up with a black eye during that match. Stephanie also turned down Vince's idea of putting her real-life wedding to Triple H on pay-per-view. These revelations painted a deeply uncomfortable portrait of a father who saw no boundary between his family and his business, a man whose instinct, when his daughter wanted privacy, was to air everything for content. The timing of all this matters enormously. McMahon attempted to purchase the documentary after growing concerned about some of the footage, but Netflix declined to sell the project. He then asked his longtime ally Ari Emanuel to share his concerns about his portrayal in the docuseries. When he couldn't stop it, when he couldn't buy it, when he couldn't control the narrative, he went on the record and made sure Stephanie's most uncomfortable family details were part of the final cut. If Stephanie didn't want the world to know, Vince made sure they did. To understand why Vince might want to expose Stephanie, you have to understand the war for control of WWE and how Stephanie and Triple H ended up on the opposite side of the barricade. In July 2022, Vince McMahon retired as CEO of WWE after an internal investigation into hush money payments to former employees. He still remained the company's largest shareholder. He was succeeded as CEO by Stephanie McMahon and company president Nick Khan. Triple H, meanwhile, was installed as head of creative. For the first time in decades, WWE was being run without Vince McMahon's hands on the wheel. But Vince wasn't done. In January 2023, McMahon exited retirement and returned as executive chairman of WWE amid rumors that the company would be sold. His return sent shockwaves through the company, not least because Stephanie McMahon subsequently resigned from her roles, announcing her departure from WWE. She didn't stay to fight. She left. Her father came back, and she walked out the door. The prevailing interpretation was that Stephanie couldn't coexist with Vince's renewed authority, particularly given the cloud of scandal hanging over him. Triple H, meanwhile, was furious. Leaked text messages from court documents show that he was confused and alarmed by Vince's continued involvement when the merger with Zuffa, UFC's parent company, created TKO Group Holdings. Vince was appointed executive chairman, but the internal dynamics were fractured beyond repair. This is the environment that bred the conspiracy theories. Former WWE head writer Vince Russo addressed the tension between the family members publicly, saying about Triple H, "It's complicated because you and the missus screwed over the father-in-law, the father." On the Masters of Wrestling podcast, Martin Stone revealed a conspiracy theory that Triple H and Stephanie McMahon were the ones who leaked information about NDAs to have Vince McMahon removed from the board of directors. Whether that theory holds water or not, it's the kind of speculation that would absolutely reach Vince McMahon's ears. And if Vince believed his own daughter and son-in-law orchestrated his downfall, then everything that followed, the lawsuit naming Stephanie, the documentary revealing her secrets, starts to look like retaliation. The shareholder lawsuit filed in Delaware alleged that McMahon predetermined the TKO merger with endeavor to secure his continued role at the company despite the sexual misconduct allegations. The lawsuit also accused Vince McMahon, Triple H, and Nick Khan of potentially destroying evidence. Legal documents revealed extensive text exchanges between Triple H and Nick Khan, showing a WWE power structure that was deeply divided and brimming with distrust. Later documents showed that Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, and Khan met with Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel and President Mark Shapiro on December 13, 2022, just weeks before McMahon forced his return to the company. So there was Stephanie, sitting in a room with her father and Endeavor executives weeks before he would bulldoze his way back in and essentially force her out. She knew. He knew. And when the dust settled, Vince was chairman again, Stephanie was gone, and Triple H was left to navigate the wreckage. The big man finally cut off all ties with WWE in 2024 after the Grant lawsuit, selling off his remaining TKO shares for over $776 million. He was out, but the damage was done. Not to himself, but to his daughter. Being named in the Janelle Grant lawsuit, even in what was described as an ambiguous context, carried enormous weight. Grant's attorney and Callis confirmed Stephanie McMahon's identity as corporate officer number 3. What the lawsuit specifically alleged was that Stephanie McMahon motioned for Grant to sit near her at the boardroom table during an executive committee meeting, and that she allegedly knew of other instances of McMahon engaging in inappropriate sexual conduct. Now, Stephanie was not accused of any sexual misconduct herself. Khan, Blum, Stephanie McMahon, and Nurse do not face any explicit claims of knowing about the alleged sexual abuse that occurred to Grant. But being named alongside executives accused of facilitating or covering up exploitation, that's a stain that doesn't wash off easily. Especially for a woman who had spent years positioning herself as the progressive face of WWE, the champion of the women's revolution, and the executive meant to lead the company into a modern era. The timing of Stephanie's mention in court documents raises questions about how those details entered the legal record. The original lawsuit referenced corporate officers anonymously, but the information linking those anonymous roles to real identities had to come from somewhere. Grant's lawyers confirmed the identities after Front Office Sports published its investigation, painting a picture of institutional knowledge that would have originated from WWE's inner circle, Vince's inner circle. And the documentary compounded the problem. While Stephanie tried to maintain composure and deflect from the most damaging stories, Vince openly admitted to the incest storyline pitch on camera, precisely the story Stephanie had refused to share. The framing of the Netflix series made it clear Stephanie's discomfort was part of the story Vince was willing to tell. Stephanie later revealed on her podcast, "What's Your Story?" that her daughter Aurora's aspirations to join WWE changed after her grandfather's allegations and departure. The fallout wasn't just professional, it was generational. Aurora had trained with future WWE Hall of Famer Natalya, but her career path shifted after Vince McMahon stepped down amid the allegations. The exposure didn't just affect Stephanie. It reached into her home, into her children's dreams. And yet, through all of this, Stephanie has largely remained silent about her father. She has not publicly condemned him. She has not issued a detailed statement about the lawsuit beyond what appears in legal filings. She has chosen distance over declaration. Her appearances have been sporadic since leaving WWE, welcoming the crowd at WrestleMania XL Night 2, attending SummerSlam 2024, but never addressing the controversy head-on. Triple H, for his part, has acknowledged the complexity. Inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2025, he referenced Vince McMahon during his speech, acknowledging the complicated relationship while still crediting him for his rise. He walks a tightrope, running Vince's company while being married to the woman Vince exposed. So, did Vince McMahon deliberately expose Stephanie to get back at Triple H? Here's what we know for certain. Vince McMahon lost control of WWE. His daughter and son-in-law were in power when he was first pushed out. When he returned in January 2023, Stephanie resigned. When the Grant lawsuit forced him out permanently, Triple H remained and continues to run the company. Vince's legacy is now in the hands of the very people he may resent. The theory that Stephanie and Triple H leaked NDA information remains unproven. But if Vince McMahon believes it, his actions begin to form a grim kind of logic. Naming Stephanie in legal proceedings, even ambiguously, ties her name permanently to the scandal. Revealing the incest storyline on Netflix, after she explicitly declined to discuss it, ensures millions see her connected to one of WWE's most disturbing creative ideas, even though she rejected it. Vince criticized the Netflix documentary before its release, claiming it blurred the line between the Mr. McMahon character and his real self. But he didn't protect Stephanie in those interviews. He didn't shield her. He answered the questions she refused to answer. He smiled while doing it. Whether this was calculated revenge or simply the behavior of a man who never recognized boundaries between character and self, business and family, control and cruelty, is something only Vince McMahon truly knows. But the outcome is undeniable. Stephanie's name is in court filings. Stephanie's most uncomfortable stories are on Netflix. Stephanie's daughter has stepped away from the family business. And Triple H? He's left holding the keys to the kingdom, knowing that the man who built it might rather burn it down than let someone else sit on the throne. Recent speculation even suggests McMahon could attempt to buy WWE back from TKO. If that ever happens, whatever fragile peace exists between father, daughter, and son-in-law would likely shatter completely. As of April 2026, the Janelle Grant lawsuit remains active in federal court. Stephanie McMahon has been announced as the first inductee into the 2026 WWE Hall of Fame, with the ceremony scheduled for April 17th in Las Vegas as part of WrestleMania 42 week. Vince McMahon will not be the one inducting her. He won't even be there. A father who once pitched himself as the father of his daughter's child on television is now absent from the ceremony honoring her career. Whether that's justice, irony, or simply the final act of a storyline that was always too real to be entertainment, that's for you to decide.